Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Chill Out podcast. So, it's currently raining. I have my blanket on. I'm chilling on the couch and I'm recording this episode, and I'm super excited to be hanging out with you. So, I'm pretty nervous to record this episode, and I might not post it because it's honest and vulnerable and scary. And I'm probably going to add humor into it because that's literally my coping mechanism in life. A little bit of humor and, some slight self deprecating behavior. So, I literally binge watched the entire new season of Jenny and Georgia on Netflix, and I've always enjoyed this show because it shows such an honest representation of mental health, which is like so relatable. And seriously, how hot is Marcus? I mean, honestly, Felix Mallard is probably the most handsome guy I've ever seen. And I mean, we have Justin Bieber in the world, okay? That says a lot. So I've been thinking a lot about this episode. Speak a little bit about something that's more honest and real. So I decided to have a more real and honest conversation about my mental health and how I honestly didn't think that I would live past 20 years old. And full disclaimer, if you are under 18, I probably would click out of this episode because it is slightly darker and more honest about struggles that I've experienced. So I've always felt like I never fit in. From a very young age, I always felt really alone. And in school, I had friends. Like, I wasn't a complete loser, but I would always just like sort of vibe with everyone, moved around to different people, but never felt like I belonged anywhere. And mental health is such a complex thing, and back then it didn't have the awareness that it has now. So when you feel sad or not that great mentally, you just sort of like go with the flow and just hope that the feeling goes away, and sometimes it does, but sometimes that really dark feeling stays, and it's really hard to explain it if you haven't experienced it. But it's not fun, obviously, and it's hard because when you can't explain what you're feeling, how are you supposed to deal with it, right? So I've always been that person that sort of keeps it all in, tries to deal with it on my own, and that's probably not the best thing because sometimes it does become too much. And I would do this thing where I would like portray to people that I'm like all good when I'm not, and just sort of pretend until I believe it myself. And when I was younger especially, I would try and like brush it off a lot when I was like going through something, or just like try and force myself to be positive and optimistic, and that's how I would sort of deal. It's only been recently in my like late 20s that I like started to not push aside the things that I would feel and rather be honest about them and confront them, and that helped. I mean, who enjoys being sad? Literally no one. But I would hate myself if I would be sad for too long and then like try and force myself out of it instead of navigating it and regulating my emotions properly. And when life knocks you a few times, it for sure dampens your spirit and your energy. And for the longest time, I just pushed forward, not actually dealing with those deeper feelings until they just came rushing back. And that's probably why I started becoming really interested in like wellness from the age of like 18, 19, because it felt like a way to take my power back and rather learn more about what I was feeling so that I could deal with it in the right way and the most natural way. I'm not even being dramatic right now, but when I was in high school, I was so unhappy. I was so depressed, and I know this is not something new. I know a lot of people experience this, and if you have ever experienced depression, you will understand how dark it gets. I mean, all I wanted to do was just stay in my room like all the time and like be by myself, and that only made me feel even lonelier. And when you experience depression, it's like you're in like this dark cloud, you see no light, you feel completely hopeless, and you're like overwhelmed by just constant darkness. And I literally sometimes hate talking about stuff like this because I don't want to feel like a victim, because I'm not, but I also don't agree with pretending like things are just okay. Like when I had depression, I felt like I had no hope. I felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel for me. I felt so alone for such a long time, and I sometimes feel that way even now. But at least I know now how to like understand what I'm feeling so that I'm able to like deal with it and take care of myself, because before I would have constant thoughts about just ending it all. Like I felt unwanted, unlovable, never good enough, and alone. And the thoughts would just overwhelm me, like to the point of just wanting it to all just end. But as I've matured and like grown through life, I know I'm someone who feels really deeply. Like I feel everything. I can literally watch an episode of like anything, and if someone's like crying or if someone's having like a really emotional moment, like I'm for sure getting emotional about it. Like I feel so deeply. I feel like that's probably why I'm so connected to the ocean, because it's such a deep force of energy, and I am such a sensitive person sometimes, and I just feel things so deep that it's kind of annoying at times, but I've also grown to love that part about myself because it makes me human. I have a lot of emotions. I'm a deep thinker, and that for sure didn't help. And when you're in that state of mind, you don't see the light at all. You're just so deep in the depression that it consumes you. And I remember those times so vividly. It was hard. Like, you know that feeling when your mind makes you feel like everyone hates you, no one likes you, no one wants to be around you. Those thoughts cut deep. And when you're like a people pleaser and a perfectionist, like I was, it doesn't help at all. I had to eventually let go of the need to be perfect all the time and pretend to be happy all the time, because I wasn't. And, you know, the whole perfectionism thing really put me down and like hindered me so much, because when things weren't perfect, or if I felt like I wasn't doing enough, I would start to get like really bad anxiety attacks, which would make me like physically sick. Like I would feel like I would have like really bad headaches. I would feel like so just terrible inside. Okay, like it was just the worst. And obviously now I've been very open about my struggles with anxiety. I try and deal with it and like navigate through it to the best of my abilities. But back then, I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I needed to make sure that I was focusing on myself and sort of like letting go of like that feeling of wanting everything to be perfect, because it's not always going to be perfect. It didn't help when I finally graduated high school and started working a job, because then I was so naive, and being in a toxic environment where people are like fake, older men are so gross, and I'm this young girl like still figuring it out, not knowing what I want to even like do with my life. And that's like a super vulnerable place to be, because you sort of just absorb so many things around you, and sometimes those things aren't the best things. But hey, we live and we learn. I just really hated myself for so many years, and I felt so alone and just felt not the best about myself, and just always seeked like stability. Then at 19, I moved from one toxic environment to the next. I was now in an environment where I started like a new job. I just got out of a toxic job where I felt even further away from my real self, and that sucked, because when you can't be yourself and you don't have that like strong sense of self, you can't really stand strong. You're like being pushed one side to the next, losing yourself in every moment. And just being in that whole work environment with people who I naively thought were decent people definitely weren't, and I was probably in one of my lowest places in life working there. It honestly became so much. And on top of that, being in a really confusing, toxic situationship with a guy who honestly, in my opinion, was an asshole. And that whole situation just made my mental health so much worse. I honestly just don't understand how it can be so hard to be a decent person. I honestly just don't. Like, I vividly remember driving like to work. Well, I wasn't driving, but like my dad was taking me to work. I didn't have my license yet, but I remember being in the car and just crying. Like I was getting such bad anxiety because I knew that I had to go to work and be in that environment and be around those people who were honestly not that great of people. And I'm just being honest. Like it was such a terrible time for me, and I was going through such a bad, I was just so depressed and like so sad. And then having to be around those types of people, being in that environment and having to deal with that, it became so overwhelming, and it was honestly one of the lowest points ever. To be honest, when I finally made the decision to remove myself from that situation, and when I finally left that environment, it was probably one of the best things I could have ever done. Like when I think back to it now, I'm like, that was definitely a transitional point in my life where I was stepping away from that toxic like environment with those people. You sort of have to like mold into what they deem as respectable and acceptable, and it's just all surface level stuff, and that's never really been my vibe. So stepping out of that and sort of going to like a newer environment was such a transitional point for me and became such a positive thing in my life. It was honestly one of the best things I could have ever done for myself, because then I met my future boyfriend, who's now my ex, but I'm not even kidding. Meeting my ex literally saved me. Like, I'm not even being dramatic with you guys. I finally met someone I could literally just be myself with, like my real self. Like, he met the person that I actually am, and that's the person who he ended up obviously falling for. So that whole experience was such a positive experience for me, because I could be my real self, and he loved me for me, and being with him was so passionate and so intoxicating and just fun, and spending time with him was probably the happiest I'd ever been in life at that point. And I finally felt like I wasn't alone, like I wasn't stranded on an island by myself. I had someone to live life with, and being with him made me so happy, because it was the most genuine form of love I'd ever had. This was like my first real boyfriend, like my first time actually falling in love, and it being such a pure form of love and feeling so good. And I felt like I finally belonged somewhere. I felt ecstasy when I was with him, and nothing else mattered. I was happy, and when I wasn't, obviously everyone goes through, like ebbs and flows of their feelings, whatever, but he was there for me. And I'm not for sure at any means like a perfect person, no one is, but I will forever be grateful for those experiences with him, because meeting him literally saved me. And not in like a cheesy way, like it literally did. I finally felt stability, and it felt like home being with him. And it's crazy how life works that way, because a few years before then, I was in like such a dark headspace for sure, feeling like I was not worthy, like everyone hated me, I hated myself. And now starting my 30s, sure, life has like knocked me a few times and made me jaded by like so many experiences, but I've learned a lot, and that's why I'm so passionate about mental health, because I get it. I really do. Sometimes it might feel like there's literally no hope. It might feel incredibly lonely, but then the sun shines again and you're okay. So if you're like Googling, am I emotionally unstable or just in a growth phase at like 2 a.m., ask yourself the real question. What if you're not spiraling? What if you're just like shedding an old version of yourself? Let's get one thing straight. Spiraling isn't always some dramatic breakdown where you're like crying on the bathroom floor or like screaming into a pillow at like 1 a.m. Okay? Most of the time it's subtle, quiet, almost invisible from the outside. It's rereading a message 5 times before hitting send because you're worried it sounds like too much or too blunt. It's rethinking a conversation from 2 days ago and wondering if you said something weird. That is so relatable, honestly. It's feeling totally exhausted by 10 a.m. even though you technically haven't done anything. It's scrolling for hours. It's overstimulated and underwhelmed, wondering why you feel so disconnected from yourself. And at the core of that spiraling is this combination. A dysregulated nervous system, plus a tired mind, plus too much input and not enough output. Your nervous system is basically the control center for how safe, grounded, and present you feel. When it's regulated, you can move through the day feeling calm, clear-headed, and emotionally steady, even when things go wrong. But when it's dysregulated, which can happen from stress or lack of rest, overwhelm, or emotional buildup, your body and your brain go into overdrive. You might feel on edge for no reason, easily overwhelmed by things that usually don't faze you, hyper aware of everything and nothing at the same time. It's not that you're like too sensitive, your system is just like really tired. It's like your brain has 47 browser tabs open and not one of them is loading properly. We live in a world of constant input, podcasts while we cook, emails while we eat, TikToks in between tasks, group chats 24/7, and a million people telling us how to feel, what to wear, who to be. But where does it all go? When you don't give yourself time to process, whether that's through journaling or trying to talk to someone, resting, or just being still, it builds up quietly. And then suddenly, one minor inconvenience, like a text left unread, sends you into a spiral. Fun times. A few weeks ago, I had one of those off weeks, you know, the ones where nothing's technically wrong, but everything feels slightly off. I wasn't sleeping properly. I was scrolling on Pinterest way too much. Every task felt overwhelming. I couldn't tell if I was burnt out, bored, emotional, or just in an identity shift. Probably all of the above. I kept trying to push through it, drink more water, go for a walk, just be productive. But it wasn't until I actually just slowed down, phone off, journal out, lie on the floor and stare at the ceiling, slow down, that I realized I wasn't lazy. I wasn't broken. I was just maxed out. Too much input, not enough output. My mind was so tired. My nervous system was so out of balance. And I just needed rest, not another to-do list. And as someone who loves being productive, because honestly, that type of stuff just fuels me, because my mind is so overactive in general. Sometimes I like to just keep busy and do things and be creative because I need an output, okay? But when you're in a mode where you sort of feel just out of place and you don't feel like yourself, sometimes the best thing to do is just honestly slow down and do nothing. So this is your reminder that spiraling doesn't mean you're failing. Sometimes it's just your body and your mind saying, hey, can we catch our breath for a second? When your mind's racing and your heart feels like it's stuck in overdrive, you don't need to fly to Bali or drop hundreds on a cold plunge or sound bath to come back to yourself. You just need to try and incorporate small rituals that gently say, hey, you're safe, you're allowed to slow down now. So I really want to talk about some of the tools that have helped me pull myself back when I felt like I'm on the edge of a full-blown spiral and meltdown. Yay. For so long, I treated workouts like punishment for existing. I'd hit the gym to fix myself or change something, be better. But the game changed when I started moving my body just to feel better mentally. Not to burn off a croissant, not to earn rest, just to move stuck energy through me. Even something as simple as laying in child's pose on my bedroom floor with a pillow under my chest, breathing deeply for 3 minutes, has helped me reset more than any spin class could ever do. It's not about pushing through. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is soften. I know, okay? You're probably going to be judging me for the next one, but matcha has literally become my full-blown personality at this point. I know it sounds basic, but hear me out. The act of whisking matcha in the morning, listening to a calming Ophelia Wilde calming playlist, and sitting down to journal even for 5 minutes has become my anchor. A moment that reminds me I exist outside of the chaos. Calm doesn't magically appear when you clear your schedule. It comes from doing one thing with full presence. Whether that's making a warm drink or writing down 3 thoughts, intentionality brings you back. Then there's the ocean, my favorite place, my happy place, or in my case, staring at it until I feel like my brain stops buzzing. But you don't need to live by the sea to feel this. Let the sky hold your anxiety. Let a tree absorb it. Let a cloud distract you for a second. Go outside and find one thing that asks nothing of you. Not your phone, not your to-do list, not your own reflection. A patch of blue sky. A stubborn weed poking through the sidewalk. The stillness of that thing will mirror what your nervous system is craving. Peace without performance. So lastly, rest like you mean it. And this is a hard one for me and maybe for you too. Rest often feels like something I have to earn. After a productive day or a successful launch or a clean inbox, my spiraling often starts because we're just tired. And not just need a nap tired, okay? Tired in our bones, tired in our brains, tired of holding it all together. Sometimes that can be so exhausting. Oh my gosh. So this is your permission to have a slow morning without guilt, to nap at 2 p.m. because you need to put your phone on do not disturb and protect your peace like it's a damn investment, okay? Because it is. The spiral will tell you to keep going, to figure it out right now. But the truth is, it starts to fade the second you say, I'm allowed to pause. And sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do. Spiraling often feels like your brain's stuck in like a glitchy loop. You're overthinking every decision, questioning every move, festering on the past, like trying to force clarity when all you really feel is off. But here's a quiet truth that's easy to miss when your thoughts are doing the most. Sometimes spiraling is just your intuition trying to get a word in. Because the root of the spiral, it's not always anxiety. Sometimes it's resistance. Resistance to the fact that you're outgrowing something that used to really fit. It could be a job, the one you worked so hard to land, the one that looks impressive on LinkedIn, makes your parents proud, pays you well, and yet you dread every Monday like it's a personal betrayal. You find yourself zoning out in meetings, fantasizing about something softer, more creative, more you, and then you spiral, wondering, is it burnout or is it just not the right path anymore? It could be your relationship. The person who once felt like home now feels like a version of yourself you're slowly moving away from, and it's hard. Conversations feel forced. Your goals don't quite line up anymore. Maybe you're realizing that the dream relationship you had at like 25 doesn't meet your emotional needs at this point in your life. And you can't tell if that's maybe growth or selfishness. Spoiler, it's probably growth. It could even be your own idea of success. Maybe your 20s were all about hustling, proving yourself and all of that. And now you crave peace. Time to go on walks, journal in cafes, take naps without guilt. You don't want your worth to be measured in productivity anymore. But stepping back feels like a failure, even if it's exactly what your nervous system is begging for. Here's the thing. Just because it made sense then doesn't mean it fits now, and that's okay. That's why I literally always try and promote journaling, because it allows you to understand what you're feeling so that you can confront those feelings and actually be honest with yourself. Because until you can actually be honest with yourself, you can't really move forward in life and actually live a life that feels good for you. You're allowed to change your mind about your career, your city, your 5-year plan, your favorite cereal, your entire identity, if that's what your soul is asking for. That doesn't make you flaky or lost. It makes you human. Evolving is part of it. Like I said, I had a week recently where I couldn't tell if I was burnt out or having a full-blown identity shift. Everything felt heavy. I started questioning, like, do I even want to do YouTube and podcasting anymore? Plans I had no longer felt aligned. I spiraled, obviously, and what I do when I'm in those situations, I sort of like just push everything aside and I just want to be by myself. I want to lay on the couch and literally just rot and watch my favorite show. And then I started Googling things like, how do you stop spiraling? And what to do when you outgrow your life. And then I realized, oh, I'm not broken. I'm just changing. And I haven't let myself fully accept that. So if you're like in the same type of vibe, questioning your worth, your relationships, your rhythm, pause and ask yourself, what if this isn't a breakdown? What if this is the beginning of something new? You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to listen. Because the most powerful shifts don't come from certainty. They come from honoring the pull to try something different. Even if that means changing your mind. Even if that means letting go. Even if it's messy. Especially if it's messy. Because growth is not linear. And spiraling isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're waking up to the fact that maybe, just maybe, it's time to choose yourself. There's a kind of strength that no one really talks about. It's not loud. It's not performative. It's not about pushing through or doing the work with like a vengeance. It's the kind of strength that says, I can be okay even if the world around me isn't. That's like eternal safety, and it's something a lot of us never learned how to build, especially if we grew up in chaos or in environments that taught us to be hyper independent or hyper aware or constantly waiting for the next thing to go wrong. So when life gets loud, when Mercury is in retrograde, when your inbox is a war zone, when your brain won't stop running laps, it makes sense that your instinct is to spiral, because your nervous system never learned what safe feels like unless everything is perfectly in place. Oh my gosh, I can hear the rain. It's so beautiful. I'm not even kidding. It's so stunning. It just makes the whole vibe so much more cozy, don't you think? But so back to your normal schedule programming. The thing that I've learned the hard way is you don't have to wait for your external world to calm down in order to feel calm on the inside. You can start to build that steadiness yourself, not all at once, but slowly, intentionally, and gently. It looks like journaling when your brain feels like static. Even if all you can write is, I don't know what I'm feeling 10 times. Even if your to-do list is screaming at you, the simple act of checking in with yourself starts to rebuild trust. It reminds your brain, hey, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm not abandoning you. Even doing like somatic breath work or just lying on the floor in silence for 60 seconds. It sounds small, but when was the last time you just sat with yourself? No scrolling, no fixing, no analyzing, just being, just existing. Sometimes I lie in child's pose for 3 minutes with one hand on my heart, one hand on my chest, and I just breathe. No fancy technique, just being with myself. It feels awkward at first, obviously, because like, what am I doing? But then it feels like home. Like using affirmations that don't feel fake. You don't need to tell yourself you're like Tate McRae level amazing if that doesn't land today. Start smaller, softer, gentler. Say things that feel true enough to be believable. It's okay to not have the answer yet. I'm safe even when things feel uncertain. I don't need to rush to fix this. I can feel fear and keep going. I'm not broken. I'm just growing. Those are the types of realistic affirmations that you can start saying to yourself on a daily basis by just starting small and building up that habit within yourself. The goal isn't to become perfectly regulated or zen 24/7. Trust me, that is my life goal, to be mentally zen and calm all the time. I'm a pretty chill person by nature. I sometimes don't take myself serious enough, but I honestly have just accepted the fact that nothing is perfect all the time. And there's a certain level of freedom when you accept that. It's rather to build an internal world that can hold you when things feel off, to know that you don't have to control your environment in order to feel steady. To remind yourself that you're allowed to soften, especially when everything around you feels hard. The truth is, life will get chaotic again. There will be more spirals, more identity shifts, more plot twists, but when you're built that internal safety, you stop fearing the chaos so much, because you're kind of like created a space inside of you that's always calm, always home, always stable, always safe, and that changes everything. I feel like the spiral gets a bad reputation. We treat it like a malfunction, a glitch, something to hide, fix, or power through. But what if the spiral isn't something going wrong? What if it's something waking up? Maybe the spiral is just your soul rearranging itself. Maybe it's the stretch marks of growth. Maybe it's your body whispering, hey, it's time for something new. You're not broken. You're becoming. And yes, becoming is messy. Fun times. It's confusing. It's crying in your car for no clear reason. It's watching a TikTok and like suddenly questioning your entire life. It's sitting in your room, lights off, wondering if you're lost or just in between. And that in between, things get blurry. Your mind feels like a cluttered inbox. You read the same sentence 5 times. You ghost your texts, not because you don't care, but because you don't have the words. You scroll for hours hoping for a sign, but everything just feels farther away from yourself. That version of you, the one in the spiral, isn't a failure. It's the version doing the real work. The one shedding, questioning, shifting. The version that's cracking open to make space for something so much better. You're rolling under the stars with nowhere to go but everywhere. Such a beautiful, introspective quote from the book by Jack Kerouac, On the Road. If you guys haven't read that, I would definitely check it out. I've read like a few of the pages online, and I recently purchased the book and it just arrived. So I'm super keen to actually go and pick it up. Like, I'm really keen, I'm not even kidding. Instead of resisting the spiral, what if you softened into it? Romanticizing the quiet unraveling, romanticizing the part of you that's tired but still hopeful, romanticizing the confusion. It means you care. It means you're awake. It means you're alive. It means you're human. It means you haven't given up on yourself. So light a candle, play your favorite sad girl playlist, journal like it's a love letter to your future self. Take a walk without your phone and notice what the wind feels like on your skin. Let your thoughts fall out of you like poems. Let your brain empty itself gently, because your brain isn't broken. It's just full, and that's something that I feel like a lot of people need to be reminded about, because sometimes you get so caught up in those dark, intrusive thoughts and you start spiraling and things feel so overwhelming that you immediately think that you're broken, that you're failing at life, but you're actually not. You're just at capacity, and now you need to start actually taking care of yourself. So just remember that your brain isn't broken, it's just full, okay? Full of unprocessed feelings, full of pressure, full of what you've been holding in to just keep it all together. So let it spill, let it soften, let it spiral, let it stretch. You're not behind, you're not late, there's nothing wrong with you, you're not failing, you're feeling. And that means you're still here, you're still trying, you're still keeping on moving forward. Even in the spiral, you're becoming. So to end off this episode, I highly recommend ending it off with a beautiful, peaceful self-care vibe, okay? Light a scented candle, turn off your phone, put on a really soothing playlist, and ask yourself, what am I trying to force that wants to change? What's something I can let go of today? What would it feel like to give myself a softer pace and to be kinder to myself on certain days? So as always, I love hanging out with you guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a really honest one. So I'm probably going to post it anyways. YOLO. But don't forget to follow on Spotify, subscribe on Apple, do all of those good things. I also have a YouTube channel and a book called Bright Days Ahead, which is available on Amazon. Check it out. And I have a weekly blog, okay? Check out thewardmethod.com. I have inserted all the links in the description, so check it out. I love you. Have an amazing week, okay? And you got this. Ciao.